Hey folks, thanks for joining us today. Today we are in 2 Samuel 23 with Leonie, and I'm not even going to try and do the title because my voice, I've just given up on trying to do that loud, high-pitched. Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. Thanks, Leonie. Welcome to the podcast today, folks. We're continuing through these final chapters of 2 Samuel. Today, Wednesday's episode, we're doing 2 Samuel 23. In my Bible, it's entitled David's Last Words.
Mm-hmm. That's mine too.
That's yours too. All right. Well, what have you got for us, Leonie, in your notebook there? As you've studied and prepared, what do you want to share with our listeners?
Okay, so this is David's last words written like a poem, but with so much wisdom. So some people would call this a song as well, but I saw the poetic license through it. So, the Spirit of the Lord spoke through me, his words was on my tongue. David was really close to God.
Yes.
And I could see that through these words that he was writing. So it says, when one rules over men in righteousness, when he rules in the fear of God, which is interesting, we're just talking about that, he is like the light of the morning at sunrise on a cloudless morning, like the brightness after rain that brings the grass from the earth. What a testimony of putting God in the right place in your life. So I really love that.
That's great.
I thought that is just so good. Wouldn't that be nice if our leaders of today would put that verse in front of them?
Oh, yeah.
And would just completely live
And
by
run
God.
our entire days as leaders, whether political leaders, religious leaders or whatever, run our day through that filter.
Yes.
Wow.
Imagine the world it would be.
It would be a different place, wouldn't it?
Anyway, so there is where you want to be at the end of your life. I actually, just thought that was amazing, but is not the house right with God? So I've actually written near the end, but I wanted to explore this just a little bit further. So it is got, so I didn't find, I found that this was interesting because there was a genealogy of the mighty men of God.
Yes, that comes after the little final words that sort of ties in there and brings brings in a list of David's mighty men.
Yes, so it says here, is not my house right with God? Has he not made me an everlasting covenant, arranged and secured in every part? So you could almost say that this 23 was like a will and testament of my life, because he goes through everything about how the Lord was, that he's amazing when one rules over men in righteousness, when he rules in the fear of God. The fear of God is very interesting.
Yep.
So he's mentioned that the fear of God was his primal focus.
Yep.
So, and I know I was just sharing with you that the first sermon that I ever heard John Bevere ever say was the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
There's a lot of controversy around the fear of the Lord.
It's a controversial topic as to what it means to have the fear of the Lord, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So first people, like literally, they think fear of the Lord. Why would you be scared of something that you need to be close to?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I think, that's true. But
That's right.
what does the fear of the Lord
What does
really
the fear
mean?
of the Lord really mean?
So, Pastor Rohan, what does the fear of the Lord mean?
Oh, that's a good question. And scholars will argue about this, and you'll get a range from, the fear of the Lord at the softer end of the spectrum. The fear of the Lord just means to have a healthy respect for God. That's at the softer end of the spectrum. At the extreme other end of the spectrum, you'll have you have to absolutely live in cowering fear of God because he's holy and he'll strike you down if you, put a foot wrong.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is, how do we reconcile two very different views? And it's like you said, when we use the word, I'm fearful of something, it usually does mean I'm fearful of punishment or I'm fearful of retribution. But we kind of go, well, that can't be God because God is love. So we water it back all the way down to this awe and respect. It's a long time since I've read John Bevere's book on this, many, many years. Where I tend to sit on it, I think, and I was talking about this on Monday night in our Picton development team meeting, was I've come to this whole concept of the holiness of God, that it's very similar, that I have a fear, which isn't just a kind of like Jesus is worthy of my respect. No, it's a genuine awareness that God's holiness, that the Lord is dangerous. He's life-giving and dangerous. And I love the way they do it on the Bible Project, where they say it's like the sun, and the sun is incredibly life-giving, but if you fly too close to it and without the right level of respect for it, it's dangerous. And I think to me that's how I reconcile the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
That I don't have to be cowering in fear because the Lord is life-giving to me. But at the same time, it's more than just, I just got this healthy respect for God. It's more, no, God's holiness demands something of my heart, and I should be deeply respectful, deeply held in awe, should be very wise and circumspect about the way I conduct myself for fear that if I don't do that, that I'll fly too close to the sun and I might get burned.
Yes.
And to me, that's how I've come to kind of reconcile the tension between these two extremes. Does that make sense?
Yep.
What would you say?
Well, there's another perspective which is actually in the Bevere book.
Yeah, okay.
Which is the actual fear of having no presence of God in your life.
Yes, I remember that now.
But I like your perspective as well.
Yeah, I could marry that one in too.
I think all of it goes in together because if you look at the chapter 22 again, how David was in awe of how deeply amazing and strong and powerful God was, and how he could just pluck you out of all that sort of stuff. And then it goes into what he does personally. So it's John Bevere puts it this way, that it's like your father. You know, you love your father. He's a powerful, strong man, but you love him. You know, and you know that he's life-giving to you, as in he will encourage you. I should say healthy. Yeah. A healthy father relationship. He gives you things. He encourages you. He puts you in the right direction. He gives you wisdom. But at the same time, you know that your father could knock you off your feet because he is powerful. Yes. You know what I mean? And it's a bit like what you said in relation to the sun. And I remember you saying this, that the sun is great. It's life-giving, but if you get too close, it's going to burn you up. Yes. Well, that's exactly God. You got to understand who you're dealing with here.
Totally.
And when we get complacent, I think you've also said this too, is when we get complacent is when we're in danger zone.
That's when we move into danger zone. And usually the complacency comes from failing to recognise the holiness of God. Just start to see God
he's my mate.
He's our
my
mate.
Friend.
He's actually my servant rather than I'm his servant.
Yes.
He meets my needs. When I need him, I'll call out to him.
He's a genie.
That's right. He's like a genie in a bottle. And I think that's where we run the risk of not having a fear of the Lord. Pick up for me a little bit of what you just said. My voice just went then. Pick up for me a little bit of what you just said then about John Bevere saying the fear of the Lord is the fear of not having him in our life. Because that was a really you brushed past that. But I think that is quite a profound statement there too. And as I said, I could marry that in with what I just shared as well, that there is a sense in which if I'm flippant, if I am, what was the other word you just said I used? Complacent.
Complacent.
That how can I be confident of having God in my life? And I don't want to live in a planet without a sun. I need the source of life. And so I should be afraid that maybe the sun might not shine on me. In the same way, I should be maybe afraid that the Lord might not shine on me.
So taking it from that, an example of my own life, my life before I was 20 was without God. So I know the difference with God being in your life and God not being in your life. And so my life before God was that I only had me, and people let you down. We don't mean to, but we're
humans. We let people down.
That's right, and that's the way it happens. But the thing is, the difference between somebody that has God in their life and someone that doesn't is that you're constantly reaching out for something to fill that void or feel that, it's an emptiness and it's horrible and it consumes you. And then you're always busy because you can't handle just being just at peace.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you're not.
No, that's right.
And then when God enters into your life, it is a completely different realm. And people that have been brought up with God, my kids often say this.
They don't know otherwise.
They have no idea what it feels like to have that not there.
Yeah.
So when you come against trouble, you've always got a raft. When you don't have God, there is no raft. And you feel that sinking and you feel that blood drain and you feel that unprotection. I will say that, unprotection, because I was just having a chat with a beautiful friend of mine at church and we were saying it is almost heartbreaking to watch somebody who doesn't have God in their life face tragedy because they have nothing.
There's no raft.
There's no raft.
nothing to
There is
lean
no
on.
safe protection. There is no anything around you,
Yeah.
and they are vulnerable to the enemy's attack.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can say that.
Yes,
If listeners
that's
not
right.
too scared
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
No.
But he will pluck them like a vulture of a lamb that
Yep.
has no shepherd over them.
Yep.
So when we have God in our life, we have a shepherd. We have someone watching out for us, protecting us, being with us, protecting our spirit, because that is who we are.
Beautiful.
Our flesh might be hurt or whatever, but that's the prime focus of God is your spirit, because that makes you you.
Right.
So-
So I think that's why complacency is so dangerous.
Correct.
And for those that have, it's maybe either, like you said, your kids that have grown up with the Lord, or even it's always, or those of us that have been Christians for a long time, we can fall
Yes.
into that same trap.
Same
we
thing.
forget what it's like not to
Same-
have the sun.
Same thing. Yeah.
And we forget because we go, oh, the sun will always be there. The Lord will always be there. We've moved into the realm of flippancy and complacency, and we are at risk of losing the fear of the Lord, of losing that.
So I always
keeping that front and center, which is what David did, didn't he? Like
he did.
He
And
even
that
through
song
all
that
his
we
ups
just
and-
read.
exactly, with all his ups and downs.
Yes.
He kept going back. And sometimes he went straight back. Sometimes it took longer, like Bathsheba's situation. But he went back to God
Constantly.
with his problem.
And he
Against you, I've sinned, Lord.
And he knew.
Creating me a clean heart. He knew the Lord.
He knew the Lord would do that and
That's
would
right.
redeem him. I just want to share a story with you.
Go for it.
I've always reminded my boys that I was once not Christian and then Christian again, and how it was like black and white. And so one story particularly with Adrian is my youngest son that
Yep.
I birthed. I have 4, but 2 of them are adopted.
Yep.
But he actually, he was 10 years old, and Ed and I were having an argument. And most children in that situation, hearing their parents argue, would shrink back and think it was their fault.
Right.
That is the
Yes.
worldly view and
Yes.
how a child would feel, and that's normal.
Yep.
But not this one. So this one decided that if God was real, then he will tell me what to do. So he decided to pray at that moment and reach out to God and say, if you are real, you will tell me what to do, because I don't want my parents breaking up. Because, he had witnessed his friend at school
Go through it.
go through it
Miracle
and
break.
watched him transform as a person from this loving, gorgeous child to this child that was rebellious, who hated life and hated people, and was really cruel to Adrian in the end. But he saw that. He saw the transformation, and he went, I don't want to be
I don't want to be that.
I don't want to be that. But I have something. I have God.
Wow.
I
This
have
is at
God.
10 years of age.
10 years of age.
Beautiful.
Adrian was already showing this. And he said, okay, Lord, show me what to do. Because if you are here, you are going to fix this situation.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do. And and he heard God. God told him to go downstairs and pray with his parents. That's what he said. And so in the midst of
My goodness.
Cold War, this young man walks down, grabs my hand
Puts you and your husband in perspective,
and my
doesn't it?
husband, and he puts his
Wow.
little hand.
Incredible.
Once he puts our hands on top of each other, and then he puts his little hand on top of that.
Amazing.
And he looked at both of us, he said, we're going to pray.
Beautiful.
And can you deny a 10-year-old,
Oh, no.
little blue eyes, blonde-haired little kid?
Suddenly the shame and the guilt flows in,
Yes,
doesn't it?
exactly.
Oh, my
but it
goodness.
put it all
Out
in
of the mouths of babes.
perspective. Exactly. And
Yeah.
he prayed, and honestly, in myself, and I know the same with my husband,
Yeah.
we felt ice melt. Like
Incredible.
God worked through that and just broke us. And it was like we were in a trance, and we just looked at each other and go,
So
what
good.
were we going to
Yeah.
do? And it was God working through a child.
Isn't that incredible? And thank you for sharing that so
Yeah.
openly and honestly
So
with us,
that's-
because that is a beautiful story
Yes.
of someone who is this deep, even at a young age, that has that deep understanding that that God awareness in his life.
Well, that actually spoke to him, because he went, oh, you must be right.
Yeah, because
You
then it
must
works
be
for him
real.
too. Exactly. It
Because
builds his
you
faith.
just put my parents back together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's incredible.
And that was the start of his journey of faith for himself personally, because before that it was just his parents' faith.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible. You're sitting down with me next week to record an episode. So,
I know. So
that's great. Good on you, Adrian.
Yes. So anyway, I just wanted
Wonderful.
to share that
What a
with
great
you at
story.
the end of that. So, but anyway, just to finish off this chapter 23, just wanted to say this. Near the end of David's life, he became vulnerable, but God, through his life, surrounded him with mighty men.
Yep.
mighty men of valor, as they called it.
Yes, that's right.
David acknowledges them all in this chapter and what they did. So this is what I love about this chapter 23 is you've got David and him saying, like, how would you want to end your life? I would love to end my life the way David feels. And this is where you would want to be at the end of life. And it says, is not my house right with God? Has he not made with me an everlasting covenant, arranged and secured in every part? Will he not bring to fruition my salvation and grant me my every desire? So that is where you want to be at the end of your life. But in relation to acknowledging the mighty men of valor, he also acknowledged his vulnerability and how these men worked in his life.
And
what
this
they did.
is
God surrounded him with these amazing
and he was
men.
the fact that this is recorded and he's happy with this being recorded in the latter years of his life as part of his epitaph, really, is remarkable because it would not be normal human behaviour, and it certainly would not be the behaviour of most kings.
No.
Most of the epitaphs we still have recovered it, pulled out of archaeology of ancient kings. I did this and I defeated this and
Yes.
I
It's all about me.
It's all about me, the king, and how great I was. And maybe you might get a mention for your son that was going to take over as the next king or whatever. David turns the whole thing on its head.
Yes.
And he champions the cause of others who have made him great.
Yeah, and way back.
Right back into the past.
Way back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, way back to the beginning of the
Totally.
start and even to our beautiful Uriah.
Yep.
You know, he is mentioned there. So he honours every single one of them. But he
Isn't it
doesn't
incredible?
just say their name, which is what I found was really amazing, because each one, you know, you get your genealogy through most of the Bible, but this is actually saying specifically what each one did.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of not. I don't think it mentions everyone and what they did, but it mentions.
but most
it
of
mentions
them.
several and says
Several
things
of
they
them.
did.
And the ones that he didn't mention, he just put it down as
Yes.
a genealogy. But next to him was Shemaiah, son of Agi, the Hariti, is that right? When the Philistines banded together at a place where there was a field full of lentils. I thought that was interesting.
Yep, field full of beans.
Israelite troops fled from them. But Shema took his stand in the middle of the field. He defeated it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory.
So he's a man who was prepared to stand there and fight the Philistines for a field of baked
By
beans.
himself.
Incredible.
Yeah, baked beans. That's
field
right.
of beans on his own, you know.
Field of beans by himself. But you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
just the detail.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a tremendous amount of
That's so
memory.
honouring.
It's incredibly honouring. It's David is doing what he did when he first became king, where he says, "Is there anyone I can find from the house of Saul that I can show kindness?" And he elevates Mephibosheth.
Yeah.
Now we're talking he reigned for 40 years. So the 30
From
from
Judea.
the beginning.
Yeah.
So now we're talking at least 30 odd years later, and he's still the same David, saying, "How can I honour those around me?"
The ones that
Because he was aware that kings need king makers.
That's
he was
right.
going to champion the king makers, not just
Exactly.
himself as king. First of all, he champions God
yes,
as the king maker.
as all
You know,
the way
Lord,
up there,
you did this, like you did in the last psalm,
Yep.
in chapter 22, and even at the start of this one, that God has chosen him. And now he's going to go and champion God. Now he's going to champion those around him that have made him the person that he is. That's such a healthy way to live our lives. Just to stop and think, I'm here today. Not maybe to think about it this way. Who has made me the person I am today? If I'm sitting here in whatever stage of life you're at, sit down and make a list of those people that God has used
in my life.
to bring me to this point today. And that list should be very long.
And there's not many eulogies that have it. They have it about the person that's died.
That's right.
But what about the
What
people
about
that
the
actually
people that
champion them?
That's right. That's not in a eulogy. You're absolutely
no,
right.
and yet David wrote that in
David
the
wrote
last
that.
of his life.
That's beautiful.
And I really love that. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that he's mentioned the Uriah.
Yeah, that's right. Uriah gets mentioned.
'Cause
I
he
love
was
the
a
story
mighty
of
man.
the boys that pushed through the troops and went and got him a drink of water.
Yeah, the three,
At
the mighty
Bethlehem, the
three. And he
three
keeps
mighty
on mentioning mighty. Yet he didn't drink it.
He didn't drink that water, so he's thirsty.
But it's just so
and he says, "Oh, I'd love to get a drink of water from the Bethlehem."
told him exactly
Excuse
where
me.
to get it from.
So the well at Bethlehem. So these three dudes go, "Okay, let's do it." They charge the ranks. They break through the enemy ranks. They
Yes.
get the water. They bring it back and says, "David wouldn't drink it." He says, "Is this not the blood of these men who've risked their lives for me?" and he pours it out as an offering before the Lord. Now, we've got to put it in our culture. If I'm thirsty and I've if someone's risked my life and I haven't drunk the water, I'd feel unappreciated.
Yeah.
I'd go, I risked my life to drink that, get that water, and you poured it out. But that's our culture. But in their culture, there would be no greater honor than to have risked their lives and then for their king, and then have their king thank them by pouring out that water before the Lord. That's the ultimate honor. Now, we just have to realize that's a different culture to us.
Yeah.
But David was honoring their faithfulness to him.
Because he was really thirsty.
Because he was really thirsty.
But he poured it out because he said, your life is worth more than
my thirst. There you've got it. Exactly.
Exactly.
So
that's why he did it.
He goes, I'm prepared to stay thirsty because if you boys can risk your lives for me, then surely I can put up with a bit more thirst for a bit longer.
Exactly.
That's the way to view it. That's what he's doing in the act.
And he constantly brings up their name, like the three men constantly. Even though this one wasn't as great as the three men.
Yeah, he was still among the mighty men, and he was greater than the mighty man and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
yes,
he constantly remembers it, their act of kindness that they did towards him.
Yeah.
So
it's a good reflection. And I mean, you can go in and read many of those stories and find many of those stories referenced in the Bible as well in the previous chapters of 1st and 2nd Samuel. But I think in summary, it's just that whole thing of read this with that intention of recognizing the value and being grateful for those that have brought you to the place of your life that you're at today. Don't wait until you're on your deathbed to do this.
No, but do it now.
Do it now and do it regularly. Then write it down, thank them, send them a letter, send them a card, do something. Yeah. That doesn't come naturally to me, but I've done it on occasion, and it's always it's a great blessing to me, and it's a blessing to others to do that. Yeah. So don't wait until the last minute to do that.
Yeah, so I think, in summing that up, I think that's a perfect summary.
Yeah, for sure. All right then, wonderful. You got out of that easy. You didn't have to read through all their names and try and pronounce them all.
No, that would have been hard.
That's why she's skipping over it. Read the names. No. All right, folks. No worries. Thanks for that. We'll talk to you on tomorrow's episode, which is back to a bit of a challenging story, chapter 24. Talk to you then. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bible. Wait, what? Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And you can also find us on all the socials. Just search The Bible. Wait, what? And to find out more about our church, just search C3 Camden, C3 Picton, or C3 Thirroul on the web or on the socials. Thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to talking to you on the next episode of The Bible. Wait, what?